Today, we will have some basic knowledge about what is CPC, that is Civil Procedure Code, and why was it enacted. So, without wasting any time, let's begin with the question and answers round. And let's start gaining some basic knowledge about the Civil Procedure Code. So let's start with the first question, which is among the following cases in which the test of res judicata between the co-defendants has been laid down by the Supreme Court. The options are A. Sobhag Singh vs. Jai Singh, B. Jainarayan vs. Kedarnath, C. Mehboob Shah vs. Saeed Ismail, or option D. Shivdan Singh vs. Darya Kanwar. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is, in Mehboob Shah vs. Saeed Ismail, the test of res judicata between the co-defendants has been laid down by the Supreme Court. So let's now see what this was this case all about. What was the finding of the court in Mehboob Shah versus Saeed Ismail? It is a case in which the court held that for the application for the doctrine of res judicata between the co-defendants, four conditions must be fulfilled. Those conditions were: first, that there must be a conflict of interest between the defendant concerned. Second, it must be necessary to decide the conflict in order to give the reliefs which the plaintiff claims. Third, the question between the defendants must have been finally decided. And the fourth, the co-defendants were necessary or the proper parties in the former suit. So this was the finding in the case Mehboob Shah versus Saeed Ismail regarding the co-defendants and the doctrine of res judicata. Moving on to the next question, which is which of the following operate as res judicata? The options are A. A withdrawal of suit, B. An ex parte decree, C. A compromise decree, or D. None of the above. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, an ex parte decree operate as an res judicata. Let's now see and learn the concept of ex parte decree. An ex parte decree is a decree which is passed in a non appearance of the opposition or the opposite party. When one of the parties appears and the other doesn't, at the time when the case is called out for hearing and the opposite party is duly served with the summon of appearance, then the court may hear the case ex parte and order the decree against the opposite party, so to meet the ends of the justice, and that the time and the effort of one party is not wasted. The next question is the provisions relating to abetment do not apply to which of the following? The options are A. Appeals, B. Execution proceedings, C. Both A and B above, or D. None of the above. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, in executing proceedings, the provisions relating to abatement does not apply. The fourth question for the day is interrogatories shall be answered by affidavit to be filed within dash after the service of it. Fill in the blanks with the appropriate time period. The options are A. 30 days, B. 21 days, C. 10 days, or D. 7 days. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is 10 days, which means to say the interrogatory shall be answered by the affidavit to be filed within 10 days after the service of it. Now let's move on to the next question, which is Section 34 of the Code does not apply with which of the following? The options are A. Interest from the date of decree, B. Interest prior to the suit, C. Interest pending light, or D. None of the above. The correct answer to this question is option B. That means that is interest prior to suit, which means that section 34 of the code does not deal with the interest prior to the suit. So now let's see what is section 34 and what does it state. Let's now see what does section 34 of CPC states. Section 34 states in and talks about interest. This section states that in clause 1, where and insofar as a decree is for the payment of money, the court may, in the decree, order interest at such rate as the court deems responsible to be paid on the principal sum adjudged from the date of the suit to the date of the decree, in addition to any interest adjudged on such principal sum for any period prior to the institution of the suit, with further interest at such rate not exceeding 6% per annum as the court deems responsible on such principal sum from the date of the decree to the date of the payment, or to such earlier date as the court thinks fit, provided that where the liability in relation to the sum so adjudged has arisen out of a commercial transaction, the rate of such further interest may exceed 6% per annum, but shall not exceed the contractual rate of interest, or where there is no contractual rate, the rate at which the monies are lent or advanced by nationalized bank in the relation to the commercial transaction. The clause 2 of this section states that where such a decree is silent with respect to the payment of the further interest on such principal sum from the date of the decree to the date of payment or other early date, the court shall be deemed to have refused such interest, and a separate suit, therefore, shall not lie. After gaining some information and knowledge about section 34, let's proceed to the next question, which is after rejection of plaint, whether the plaintiff can institute fresh suit on the same cause of action. The options are A. Can institute another suit. B. Can institute another suit with the permission of the High Court. C. Cannot institute another suit. Or D. Both A and B above are correct. The correct answer to this question is option A. That is, can institute another suit. That means to say, after rejection of the plaint, whether the plaintiff can institute fresh suit on the same cause of action. The answer to this is yes. A plaintiff can institute another suit. Now moving on to the next question, which is at the first hearing of the suit, the court must do what functions? The options are A. Frame and record the issues. B. Ascertain upon what material propositions of fact or of law the parties are at variance. C. Record the evidence. Or D. None of the above. The correct answer to this question is option B. That is, at the first hearing of the suit, the court must ascertain upon what material propositions of fact or of law the parties are at variance and what is the basic issue in the present matter. Now let's move on to the next question, which is the court may frame the issues from what things? The options are A. Allegations made on oath by parties or by any persons present on their behalf or made by the pleaders of such parties. B. Allegations made in the pleadings or in answers to the interrogatories delivered in the suit. Option C. The contents of the documents produced by either party. Or option D. All of the above. The correct answer to this question is option D. That is, all of the above are correct. That means to say the court may frame the issue from the allegations made on the oath by the parties first, as well as the allegation made in the pleadings or in the answer to the interrogatories delivered to the suit and the contents of the documents produced by either party. Now let's move on to the next question, which is under Order 7, Rule 11 of the Code, the plane shall not be rejected. On what grounds? Options are A. Where it is not filed in duplicate. B. Where the suit appears from the statement in plain to be barred by any law. C. Where the plaintiff fails to comply with the provisions of the Rule 9. Or D. Where it discloses cause of action. The correct answer to this question is option D. That is, under Order 7, Rule 11 of the Code, the plane shall not be rejected where it discloses the correct and the sufficient cause of action. Let's now see what does Order 7 Rule 11 states. The Rule 11 of Order 7 states the rejection of plaint. As per this section, this rule gives certain conditions on which a plaint can be rejected. Let's see what does it states. The plaint shall be rejected in the following cases. The cases are A. Where it does not disclose the cause of action. B. Where the relief claimed is undervalued and the plaintiff, on being required by the court to correct the valuation within a time to be fixed by a court, fails to do so. C. Where the relief claimed is properly valued, where the plaint is returned upon the proper insufficiently stamped, and the plaintiff, on being required by the court to supply the requisite stamp paper within a time to be fixed by the court, fails to do so. D. Where the suit appears from the statement in the plaint to be barred by any law. E. Where it is not filed in duplicate. And F. Where the plaintiff fails to comply with the provisions of the Rule 9. Let's now come to the next question, which is the application under Order 9, Rule 7 of the Code to set aside the order of ex parte proceeding may be filed within how many days? The options are A. At or before the date of the fixed for hearing. B. Within 90 days. C. Within 45 days. Or D. Within 30 days. The correct answer to this question is option A. That is, the application to set aside the order of ex parte proceeding may be filed at or before the date of fixed for hearing. Now let's take a look at the Rule 7 of Order 9. It states procedure where the defendant appears on day of adjourned hearing and assigns good cause for the previous non-appearance. This rule states that where the court has adjourned the hearing of a suit ex parte and the defendant at or before such hearing appears and assigns good cause for his previous non-appearance, he may, upon such terms as the court directs as to the cost or otherwise, be heard in answer to the suit as if he had appeared on the day fixed for his appearance. Moving on to the next question, which is which section of the code prove enforcement of decree against the legal representative? The options are A. Section 51, B. Section 52, C. Section 56, or D. Section 58. The correct answer to this question is option B. That is, Section 52 is a section that proves the enforcement of a decree against the legal representative. So now let's see what does Section 52 states and means. 52 of the CPC states, Section 52 of the CPC states the enforcement of a decree against a legal representative. It states that in clause 1, where a decree is passed against a party as a legal representative of a deceased person, and the decree is for the payment of money out of the property of the deceased, it may be executed by the attachment and sale of any such property. Where no such property remains in the possession of the judgment debtor and he fails to satisfy the court that he has duly applied such property of the deceased as is proof to have been come into his possession, the decree may be executed against the judgment debtor to the extent of the property in respect of which he has failed so to satisfy the court in the same manner as if the decree has been against him personally. So let's now move to the next question, which is among the following, in which section property liable to be attached and sale in the execution of decree is provided? The options are A. Section 60, B. Section 62, C. Section 63, or D. Section 65? The correct answer to this question is option A, that is, under Section 60, the property liable to be attached and sealed in execution of decree is provided. Moving on to the next question. A judgment debtor has been arrested. He may not be released among the following grounds, which are options are A. Suffering from any serious illness, B. Suffering from any infectious or contagious disease, C. He is not in a fit state of health to be detained in civil prison, or D. None of the above. The correct answer to this question is option D, that is, none of the above options can be a ground for not releasing the judgment debtor if arrested. So now let's move on to the next question, which is among the following properties which shall not be liable for the attachment under the code. The options are A. Government securities, B. Bank notes, C. A mere right to sue for damage, or D. All of the above. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is, a mere right to sue for damages shall not make a property liable for the attachment under the code. So now let's move on to the last question for the day, which is among the following, which section deals with the proceeds of the execution seal to be relatively distributed among the decree holders? The options are A. Section 60, B. Section 67, C. Section 73, or D. Section 75. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is, Section 73 of the CPC deals with the proceeds of the execution seal to be relatively distributed among the decree holders. This was the end of our first presentation. Hope you all liked it and hope this presentation or video was able to teach you something about the Civil Procedure Code. Thank you for watching it. Thank you.